Hello and welcome to a Bastion broadcast at a slightly different time because unfortunately I can't do our usual evening slot, so we're doing a daytime stream today, which is a change for a Tuesday. It's throwing me off. I like my Tuesday night little routine of having the stream. So yeah, it's weird doing one in the daytime, but it's good because we're doing something a bit different today anyway. So I wanted to show something that is... I've shown things that are in the playtesting stage before, like Grimlight being an obvious example of something that was... I showed that quite early on. But this thing that I'm working on is like even more embryonic than Grimlight ever was. The short version is that I was playing Warhammer Total War, and it reminded me how much I got my start in kind of tabletop gaming with Warhammer Fantasy Battles, obviously way before it was Age of Sigmar, and it reminded me like how much I enjoy this kind of like, I think the experts call it rank and flank, like moving around your blocks of infantry, and you know, a game that's a bit more focused on like restricted movement and like maneuvers, and it's not so much that it's more tactical, but like it's a different kind of tactics. Like it is much more about moving in a restricted way, and also just like the visual appeal of like a stack of a big block of miniatures lined up. Now, I am in no position to be dropping hundreds of pounds on a full, even a full Age of Sigmar army, or like let alone buying a load of Age of Sigmar stuff and ranking them up in blocks. So I have been looking around and I've ordered some like 10mm stuff, which is, for those who don't know, like much smaller than your typical like Warhammer 40k miniature, like about a third of the height for an average person. So this would be like a 10cm block, 10 centimeters wide, and you'd get about 30 units on that block. So I'm going to be transparent with my influences here, as always. And 1 Hour Wargames is a book that I've spoken about before, I think on the blog or in one of the backstage videos. And it's really interesting because it has a level of abstraction that I've never really played with a war game, because my background was in Warhammer Fantasy Battles, which is, you know, in retrospect, quite a complex system in many ways, and it's all about the minutiae of like you're rolling for each individual unit, each individual person to roll to hit, and you need to think about what their weapon is, and then they are rolling to damage, and then they are the person you hit gets an armor save, and it might be modified by all these different things, and you're removing individuals. So this is intended to be something that's on a much broader scale, which is nothing new. There's lots of 10mm scale, you know, war games out there. But obviously I can't just use a game because I can't. I have to make something myself. So this is an attempt to do that. It doesn't have a name yet because I learned with Grimlight that if I give it a stupid name, I'll end up sticking with that stupid name too long, and then it becomes really difficult to change the name. Because Grimlight is not going to be called Grimlight. But I've called it Grimlight for so long that now that the idea of changing the name is kind of terrifying. But it will get a name change at some point. So, we're going to test this out. We're in Tabletop Simulator. I'm using a load of War Master figures that I found in the Tabletop Sim workshop. So, if you have Tabletop Simulator, this is something you can, you know, kind of put together. And we're just going to try out a scenario. And this is super early days, so I suspect something won't work. But I've done a couple of little test games. It's not like the first test I've ever done of it, but I've done a few. And if you receive the Bastion and editorial, you'll receive one today where I talk about like the process that I tend to go through with writing these games. For those who don't, you can go to patreon.com/bastionland and sign up to it there. But yeah, I spoke a little bit about how there's a phase in the middle of just after the inspiration phase. There's a step where I just take things too far and just like keep adding stuff to this game before the sort of skeleton is complete. And I've kind of done it here because obviously I had to design every single faction, and this isn't every single faction, but these are the units that I could get hold of. But we're going to have a nice, straightforward Empire versus Orcs scenario to give it a try. And a couple of things that I'll go through before we actually start playing. We will get to the game, but I do want to use this as a bit of an opportunity to talk about like the design process as well. So I joked about saying like I don't want to just use an existing game, but there are lots of good games out there. Like I mentioned, this 1 hour Wargames. It's like mega simple, like probably a little bit. I really admire it, but it's probably a little bit more simple than what I want out of this particular idea. But there's also things like Pendragon Games do their rule set, which is I think called Warband Fantasy Warband, something like that. And there's obviously Warmaster is still alive and well. That's on this scale. In terms of it's alive and well in terms of its rules anyway. And Kings of War, I think you can use this kind of scale. And the reason why I haven't used those games is I kind of did want to just do it as a bit of a design exercise, but also I did have a couple of things that I wanted to have in there that I wasn't seeing in other games. So I always like to have like a catchy mantra with a design. So with Grimlight, the mantra that kind of emerged from the design was no measuring, no stacking, no tracking. And I didn't want to just do the same with this, because this is a different sort of thing. Like, it's going to be... When I say... I'm talking about it in the future tense. My goal for this is to like get it so that I can play it at the table with some friends, and then who knows. But my goal with this was I wanted it to... I don't want a tournament game. I don't want competitive play to be a focus. And I did like that side of Grimlight. And originally Grimlight, I was like hard line. I was saying, no, there's no point costs. You're just going to make a scenario, make what fits, and just don't, be fair with each other and work it out. But then as things progressed and the way that the kind of campaign system kind of worked was kind of needed to have some kind of points-based system in place. With this, I want to have... So the mantras that I'm talking about are I want to have no points and no pitched battles. So when I think of war games and when I think of when I used to play like Warhammer Fantasy, the very rare times that I would actually get to play it, and going to like a club or something and meeting someone, inevitably you would get a big table, like this whole table. You'd have your army lined up and you'll have spent a long time on your army list, and it will be a pitched battle. And it might be some like take and hold objectives, but generally you're deploying on opposite sides and kind of marching towards each other. And that's fine, but I don't want that. I want to sort of create little stories. So I want to create little scenarios that are part of something bigger. So it's not just that like this is the climactic battle of our time. Like this is part of a bigger picture that's happening. So, Empire versus Orcs is very easy to imagine. But for this scenario that we're testing, there's no pitched battles. We're going to have the Empire are surrounded. There's no points, so I've just picked what makes sense. So I want this to be like kind of an artillery detachment. So we've got two units of cannons. We've got 2 units of infantry, which is, I should have said, like, units are mixed often. So the infantry is a mix of gunners and halberdiers. We have our general with some knights, and we have a unit of ogres who are presumably like mercenaries here. I do like the old Empire that had like ogres and halflings and dwarves and stuff going on. And the orcs are attacking from 2 different sides. So this is kind of part of a bigger war, I guess. And like this is like an artillery detachment that's been surrounded here by these orcs. So, because it's not a pitched battle, we're saying no pitched battles. It's not just a case of breaking the enemy. There's always going to be an objective. So, for the Empire, they have to either destroy 4 of the orc units, or kill the boss who is in here. And if you're the orc player, all they are trying to do is destroy these 2 cannon batteries. So it's not balanced and it's not fair, but it should be quick enough that if you play this, and if you're playing as one side and you feel really dissatisfied and you think, oh, this, I just couldn't work out how to make it work on this side, you can quickly swap sides and play again with the other side, or create an entirely new scenario. And the other thing, before we start, the other thing that I wanted to have in here is lots of chaos. And if you heard the podcast I did with Joseph McCullough, who designed Frostgrave and the upcoming Stargrave, we spoke there about having swingy dice mechanisms, creating this kind of... A lot of people are just like innately opposed to it. Like they'll say, oh, having a swingy dice roll as a core part of your system, that's bad design. But I kind of want it, because I want things to be... I want it to be some chaos of no pun intended. There's some chaos of battle going on here, so you don't always know what's going to happen. And I want that kind of uncertainty in there at the core, rather than having like lots of command and control stuff going on top. So we're going to go through, and I'm going to talk you through like the first couple of turns, talking through the rules. But like I say, bear in mind, these are brand new, and we'll see what happens. So the first thing you're going to do, I did have the PDF in here, but it wouldn't display properly. So I have my turn order thing in a separate document that I'm looking at. So the first thing you do is initiative, and this is part of the chaos. You're going to re-roll this every turn. So I'm rolling it as the Empire. If you get 4 or more, it means you have the initiative. If you get 1 to 3, the other player takes the initiative. So we're going to have the Empire take their turn, then the Orcs are going to take their turn, and then we'll roll again. So there's like a chance you could get a double turn. Again, more chaos, which I'm quite a fan of. Right, so Empire. What's our objective? Our objective is to either destroy 4 enemy units or kill the boss. Now, the boss is over here in a very tough unit of Iron Orcs, and he's protected by this block of... This is 2 different blocks here, but they're kind of supporting each other. So I think we do want to go for the boss, really, because we might be able to just weather the storm of all these orcs here. Now, the way that movement works is you can pivot. This is almost entirely taken from the 1 hour war games system. You can pivot. Sorry. You can pivot at the start or end of your turn, and you move 1 measure. And in this case, a measure is always the width of the bases. So for this entire game, 1 measure is 10 centimeters. So you can pivot, you can move 10 centimeters, and then you're done. Or you can move and then pivot. And you can pivot, sorry, pivot's the wrong word. Rotate is what I mean to say. You can rotate before or after your move. There's lots of keywords here. So here you can see the knights with our captain here. They have the fast keyword, which means they move an extra 10 centimeters. So they'll be able to move 20 as long as it's over open ground. And yeah, getting these keywords, getting the balance right in these keywords is going to be key, because I don't want them to be... There's some games where you have lists of like 40 keywords and you spend half the game just looking them up. So I want to have as few keywords as possible on each unit, and also just like make them as intuitive as possible. So most of them do something very simple. Okay, so we're gonna activate some units. We're gonna kind of ignore this side for now, and we are gonna go straight after the boss here. I don't know whether we'll live to regret this. So we're gonna use these infantry to start with. So they have a long range attack, which means they can fire 30 centimeters, but they're not going to be able to get there. So I think we just want to get these in a position to shoot them next turn, because they're probably going to come for us. So we're going to rotate, and we're going to move 10 centimeters, which puts us there. There's some very dodgy measuring going on, but that's just the nature of like tabletop sim. So Forgive my sloppiness there. Long range attacks, you can pivot and fire, but you can't move and fire. Artillery attacks can fire any distance over 30 centimeters, so they can hit the entire board from 30 centimeters upwards, but you can't even pivot. And your fire arc is like 45 degrees, so I don't know, I think, yeah, these cannons could probably shoot at these orcs here. I think that's about 45 degrees. Yeah. So these cannons, we're going to stay where they are. Our ogres here, we might want to like intercept some of these because we need to protect our units here. So let's move these ogres forward to give our cannons a little bit of protection. And finally, I'm a bit scared about these boar riders, so we're going to pivot this unit that way. And this cannon's going to stay where they are. And then finally, our knights. I think we want to send our knights like on a kind of flanking maneuver. So like I say, they can move 20. So they will move here. So everybody is moved. Now, in a way, it's quite a relief to not have that no stacking, no tracking thing from Grimlight. But one thing that is a bit of an issue at the moment is, now that I move on to shooting, I need to remember like who's moved in a certain way, because certain units can move and shoot, certain units can't. So I don't have a perfect fix for that at the minute. I thought about having each unit like complete its entire activation one after the other, but I tried that out in practice and it felt a bit clunky somehow. But the main thing I need to remember is these have moved, so they can't fire. Everybody else that has missile weapons can fire. So we're on to the shooting phase. So let's do some shooting. So these infantry are within 30 centimeters, which is their range of these boar riders. And then what you're going to do is, the whole combat system is based around these combat dice, I'm calling them. I'm sure this is used somewhere else, but I don't know where it's from. I am not consciously stealing this from anywhere, but I think every idea has been used somewhere. So you can see these have the keyword long 1, which means they can fire at long range, and when they do so, they roll a single combat die. When you roll your combat dice, you roll however many it tells you to. It's typically between 1 and 3. A 1, a 2, or a 3 causes that much damage. So weirdly, a 3 is the best thing you can roll. Anything that's a 4 or more is discarded. So we're going to roll 2. So these Empire infantry cause 2 damage to these boar riders. They also have a keyword called blast 1, which means when they do cause damage with a die, it causes an extra point of damage. So that's to represent their kind of handguns. So it's actually going to be 3 damage. Now that's what these cute little dice here are for. Because some units have ways to like mitigate the damage they take, but these boar riders don't have anything. So this 3 damage will stay with them. And what it means is when a unit gets to 7 damage, they are wiped out. They're assumed to just break and like rout from the battlefield. So these can take 4 more damage before they're wiped out. And yes, that is an entirely arbitrary number because I wanted to be able to use a little d6. And it obviously goes from 1 to 6. But out of limitation, often you get these cool little solutions. So we'll see how this system works out in practice. So that's 1 unit has shot. This unit of infantry cannot shoot. Now it's the 2 cannons. So they're firing beyond 30 centimeters, so they're firing artillery. So they are just rolling 1 die. I should say vision is blocked by terrain, hills, but these have got a clear shot. Oh, and vision is also blocked by enemy units. So I don't know. There's a case here about whether or not we could see this unit at the back. I think we're going to say that we can't, just for the sake of this scenario not falling apart. So they're rolling a single combat die. So it's 6, which means they miss. Now these cannons, they're only running one die, but they have blast 2. So if they do hit, they're going to cause like a lot of extra damage. Is this within 45-degree arc? I think it probably is. I actually don't know. Is that like about 45 degrees? If only I had a virtual protractor tool on here. You know what? I'm going to say it's not, actually. And if I'd actually seen that ahead of time, I would have pivoted these. So we'll say that we'd pivoted them, but they can't shoot. So that's everything that the Empire can do, because the Ogres certainly don't have any missile weapons. So play hands over to the Orcs. Now, eagle-eyed amongst you would see there was this commands thing. We're not going to worry about that yet. We'll deal with that on a later turn after I've explained like the basics of the game. So, the first thing you have to do is a morale check on any unit that currently has damage. And the Boar Riders here have 3 damage. So what you do is you roll a die, a number of die based on their combat dice. So you can see here the Boar Riders, I should have said this before, units just have one number after them. So Boar Riders are a 2 dice unit, which means they're rolling 2 dice when they attack in combat. And they're also rolling 2 dice on their morale check. And for a morale check, you just take the single highest die. So we'll take a 5. And if this is higher than the damage they currently have, no, if it's equal or higher, then you're fine. If it's lower, so if they'd rolled a 2 and a 1 on this die, let's say, then they would fail their check. And they would either have to retreat or they would break and take further casualties, which kind of represents, you know, individuals just breaking away from formation and running away. So taking damage is bad because it kind of snowballs, and the more damage you take, the more likely you are to start retreating. So everyone has passed their check at least. These Boar Riders are fast, but it's a bit far for them to reach here. But we can get ourselves set up. Or we can get ourselves set up for a charge on this artillery, actually. So they're going to rotate. And then they're going to move 20 centimeters over here. And they take their damage die with them. The little trays that I've ordered have a little tiny die holder in them, which I'm inordinately impressed by, so that you can move it around with a little die on there. When you do it in Tabletop Sim, the die tends to fly all over the place, so I don't really like doing that. So these Boar Riders are ready to charge next turn. This is just a block of Orcs. I think we're going to start to... We need to put the pressure on this unit over here. So we are just going to continue forward 10 centimeters. Now, the effect that I wanted to get with moving units around is I wanted it to be simple, which is why it's just like one move and one rotation in any order you like. But what I wanted to do was have the units feel kind of cumbersome without the rules feeling cumbersome. So I didn't want there to be like loads of different ways to move your units. Like I didn't want there to be like marching orders and, you know, about face and different ways of turning. I just wanted to have... what we're going to do with these? We're going to slightly turn and move this way just so we're staying a bit further away from the ogres. I still wanted there to just be one way of moving, and then like obviously, you know, fast units move faster, but they're moving in the same way, and like they're skirmishers and they interact differently with terrain, but they still move the same way. So the units are kind of clunky to move around, and like you can't always do what you want to do. But I've tried to do that with like as few rules as possible. So this is our boss. Kind of feel like we want to maybe keep him back a bit. No, you know what? That's not the orky way, is it? So can we move like 10 centimeters that way? Yeah. So they're going to rotate and move 10 centimeters there. These are going to rotate and move just behind them. So we're going into the long grass, which is bad for movement, but it'll help protect us a little bit from cannon fire. We're being cunning. We're being brutally cunning rather than cunningly brutal. So I think that's all the orcs moving, and no one's got into charge range. The one little restriction I have at the moment for movement is you can't charge if you've turned more than 90 degrees. So I know this is a bad example because these cannons wouldn't want to charge the orcs, but if this cannon unit couldn't just turn around to 180 and charge into the orcs, they could only turn sideways on. Yeah, so it's a slightly weird thing, but it just means you don't have like units zipping around back and forth and like retreating and then counter-charging like over and over again. So that was the orcs' turn. Now we are back to rolling initiative. So we're the Empire player, and it's a 2, which means the orcs actually get to go again. And this is kind of a lot of the source of the chaos, because if the other player has the initiative, you've basically got like a 50-50 chance of getting a double turn. Whereas if you have the initiative, you have to be aware that there's a 50-50 chance that the other player is going to get a double turn. So having the initiative is good because you get to go first, but it puts you in a slightly uncertain place, and it's something that's going to hand back and forth throughout the battle. So let's continue to get these riders around. In fact, we'll look at these commands now. So it's round 2. We're going to look at our commands. So at the moment, the way that I'm representing like your commander, and this is where a lot of the kind of faction flavor comes in. So I should say, at the moment, like an Empire cannon is kind of the same as a Dwarf cannon, and some of like the High Elf and Dark Elf units are kind of functionally the same on paper. But at the start of your turn, you get to choose one of these 3 commands, and it's basically like a little boost to your, maybe your entire army, maybe a certain unit. But this is where a lot of the flavor is going to come in. So you will have things like in the Chaos Army, a lot of the commands are, rather than being like tactical things, they're just things that make the Chaos Champions unit stronger. So your Chaos Army is very much based around your champion. And the Orcs, they have very few ranged units. In fact, I don't know if they have, other than like their Rock Lobber, which we don't have one of at the moment. I don't think they really have any ranged units. But they have a command called Arrows, which means all units can fire at short range. So the implication is that all of these Orcs are carrying like either short bows or spears or little crossbows or something, but they just won't use them unless their boss says, "Oi lads, don't forget to use the arrows." I'm going to be doing a few of these, I'm sorry. Yeah, so if left to their own devices, they're just going to run in and try and fight, but the boss has to kind of wrangle them into using actual strategy, which I quite like as a little bit of flavour. So the 3 abilities we have here is War. So all units have impact 1, which means you get a bit of extra damage when you charge. Arrows, all units can fire at short range. And Animosity, which is when one unit fails their morale roll, all of your others automatically succeed. So if you have a unit run away, all the other Orcs are like laughing at them, and they're like, puny Orcs running away, we're going to fight to the end. I've never done an Orc voice out loud, but it's actually a lot of fun. Maybe this is my calling in life. So we are going to use this command called Arrows. So all of our Orcs can fire up to 20 centimeters with 1 die, and they can do that even after moving, which will be useful in a way, but not mega useful because it's not a particularly good shooting attack. So before we do anything, we need to do another morale check for our Boar Riders. Thank you, Mech Arm, for your approval of my Orc voice. So the Boar Riders passed their test, and we'll charge them in. So we're going to charge into the rear of these cannons. So already I'm like, this scenario feels like it favours the Orcs a lot, but we'll see. We're going to move our other Boar Riders. We're going to like pivot Yeah, we're not going to go after the ogres. We're going to stay focused. These orcs are actually like surprisingly focused on their objective. So we're keeping them within our firing arc. And we're going to get these orcs in. I'm just going to move them in and then pivot. Because they can at least throw in a bit of supporting fire. Now these are moving through rough terrain. No, this isn't rough terrain. So there's two types of terrain that we really need to think about. There's three types of terrain. There are hills, which block view entirely. So this unit of orcs, even if they had long weapons, they could not shoot at this unit of knights because they are behind the hill. When you are on the hill, you ignore that, and you can see people all around the hill. But you still can't see beyond other hills, so you couldn't shoot over here if you were on this hill. Rough ground, which, I guess this is probably rough ground. All that does is it halves... Movement costs twice as much, basically. So if you're going to move... If you would normally have 6 centimeters of your movement in here, it will be dropped to 3. And then thick terrain is like forests, and that's exactly the same, but while you're in there, you're also like protected a bit from arrows. So, orcs. These are only going to be able to move forward like 5 centimeters. Because of the rough terrain. But we don't really mind that. And we're going to keep these behind. The boss is hiding behind his boys. And then we've got this unit over here. This unit over here it's quite slow. So I'm not sure what they're... But I think we're just going to continue like work towards this. 10. So it's a pivot. Ooh, and a move of 10. Because yeah, we've got these arrows, so it's going to be fine. Now, shooting. So all of our orc units have their arrows. So they can each fire one die, basically. So we'll start with this block over here. So these orcs can fire. We're firing at the Empire infantry. And that's 2 damage. And then these iron orcs, they're also in range. 1. So the good thing about this system where you roll and you only count 1s, 2s, and 3s is it averages to 1. So it's quite nice because it's very easy to work out, like, yeah, if I'm rolling 3 dice, I'm going to get an average of 3 damage. But it's quite swingy, so you'll often get nothing. But if you do hit, you often get these big hits. So it's nice having that combination of like predictability but also swinginess. Yeah, these iron orcs are going to definitely fire there. I'm assuming these have got like Uruk-hai crossbows at the cannons, and because they are firing into their flank or their rear, they're going to roll twice as many dice. And doubling a 1 to a 2 is one thing, but like if this is a combat dice 3 unit, so if we can get these units to charge into the rear of an enemy, they'll actually be rolling 6 dice, which is like absolutely brutal. But we're rolling very well as the orcs. So that's 4 damage to this cannon unit. I'm not holding out much hope for the Empire here. It's looking very bad. These boar riders are going to fire as well, and they're also shooting into the rear, so that's 1 damage, and that's all the shooting. But now our boar riders are hitting these cannons. Now they roll 2 dice normally, they have impact 1, so that's increased to 3, and they're charging the rear, so that's 6 dice. So this is why that positioning is so important. So the fact that we've left the rear of these 2 cannons open is kind of criminal. We probably should have turned them round straight away and at least had them facing front. Yeah, that's a lot. So that's 8. So this unit is wiped out, and that can happen. You know, you can have these incredibly decisive charges when you're going into the rear of a unit like this. So yeah, that's the Orc turn. Empire. So these cannons are in a bad way. Let's look at our commands, because I think we are going to need one of them. So gun line, if 2 or more shooting units are touching, they can reroll 6s. That's not much use because we're kind of spread out. Heavy charge, all knights gain impact 1. Or Iron Faith, engaged units get brave 1, which stops them running away. We don't... None of that really helps because none of our units are engaged. So it's not going to help our morale rolls. Okay, let's just... let's do these morale checks then. I think literally the only one that's useful to us is heavy charge. I don't think we're going to be able to use it. No, our knights are kind of out of position. Okay. The infantry. They've taken 3 damage. They've just passed. So a 3 is enough to pass their morale save. Now this Empire cannon. This is potentially going to end the game for us. So let's see what we can do. It's a 3. For the purposes of this game still happening, I might pretend... No, you know what? We're gonna play on, but we'll just like keep playing beyond the objective. So because this is a 3, what that means is it's a fail, obviously, because it's less than the amount of damage they have taken. Now, some units have this fragile keyword, and normally when a unit fails its morale check, you can choose to have it either move away from the nearest enemy, so it can retreat, or you can choose it to have it break. And sometimes you'll want to do that because sometimes you'll want to hold your position, and you know you don't want to retreat because it might be that you're just about to charge into a unit or you're holding a really key position. But if you do that, your unit does break and you're going to take some extra damage. Like I say, as kind of units, as individuals are kind of breaking your formation and retreating. So it's whether you retreat as one unit or break away. Now, units that are fragile don't have the option of retreating because you can't exactly drag these cannons with you. So they can only break. So when you break, you take 1 die of damage, plus 1 die for each enemy that's engaged with you, which is currently none. So it's actually okay. They don't take any extra damage. So they failed their morale check, but they've held on enough. So one issue with this is that it's a slightly weird roll where like often you're rolling and nothing happens. You like fail one roll and then pass on the next one and nothing happens. So yeah, this is an area that needs some work, but at least our gun line is kind of alive. Okay, I think as the Empire now, we kind of need to give up on these cannons being able to actually do their job, and we want to get them to safety. So we're going to move them to here, and they're going to turn away so that they are at least facing that way. Now, there's a chance these could just break at the start of a turn and then we just lose the game. But we'll carry on for now. By doing that, we've actually got a nice little flank charge here. So our ogres are going to turn and they're going to charge. Now, these have sprint, which means they can move. They can basically do like a double charge. So there's no charge bonus normally for a unit. It's only from like keywords. So sprint means they can move 20 centimeters when they charge, so that they're easily in range of these boar riders. These infantry here, I feel like this is kind of a red herring, a green herring. I think getting the boss, that ship might have sailed. I think we want to see if we can just like repel the orcs in general. So we're going to pivot these. Oh no, because we're behind a hill, aren't we? So I haven't yet written the rule about whether it's like how vision works, whether you need to see the whole unit. I was kind of thinking that in general, if you can see some of the unit, you can see them. I'm not just saying that because it favours my current situation, but it's meant to be an abstraction. So the fact that they can see some of the unit, you can assume that like on the real concrete level, this unit is like shifting to be able to target this unit here. So I'll say that that's okay. And what's going on over here? So let's turn, and we're gonna shoot at these boar riders, and then our knights. Yeah, we're gonna ignore the boss after all that, and then for our knights we're gonna pivot them this direction and move them forward 20. Not quite that direction. More like basically we want to be able to do like a counter charge. So I think we were like here, weren't we? So let's move up to like here, and then we'll do our pivot. Okay. So finally the Empire can do some killing. So let's get our shooting done. So this unit here, shooting the boar riders, 1 die. That's crap. This infantry block here, shooting at these iron orcs, 3, and they'll blast 1. So that's actually 4. So the thing with having like the way that the numbers are kind of set up and the way that scale is, things go from like good to bad kind of quick. So even like taking 1 damage is quite impactful, which is something that I like, because one of my complaints, so I did try 1 hour war games like as written, and one issue I had with it was that it felt like a bit of a grind. Like you could have units, I think, yeah, it takes 15 damage to wipe out a unit, and your attackers were like at best doing d6 plus 2 if you had like a good unit. So even your best unit was taking like, I guess like 3 rounds with some decent rolling. You could improve this by going in the flank, but also like good units were very tough. Like I recommend reading the book, it's great. I'm not going to tell you the entire rules of it, but my experience in play was that it felt like a bit of a grind. Whereas here I wanted it to be like, if you take some damage, it's bad. So we've done both of our shooting, and now we've got some ogres, right? So these ogres are a 3 die unit. They're kind of terrifying, these ogres. And they don't have anything fancy on their attack, it's just a straight up. But we're rolling double damage because we've attacked the flank. And now we see the swinginess of the system. Because even with 6 dice, I rolled 1 damage to these orcs. And this is what I like. Like, yes, it's frustrating. And yes, I would have loved to just wipe out this unit in 1. But it also tells you a good story when they can't do that. So it's like, what's happened? Have these riders just like sped past them? Have these ogres just decided, oh, they're not getting paid enough if they're mercenaries? So that is the Empire turn done. It's back to the Orcs. So the Orcs have to see about the initiative. So the Orcs hand the initiative back to the Empire. So the Empire are going to get a double turn. So again, that kind of swinginess, it can all change. Speaking of which, we need to do a morale check on these cannons. I wasn't looking. I was reading the chat when I did that, so I didn't see that roll, but that looked like a non-roll to me. Panic Pillow, good to have you here watching. 6, we'll take that. I know I'm cheating. It's playtesting, isn't it? And yeah, you could say you should be testing this like really rigorously with the rules as written. But the thing is, I know that this scenario is kind of bullshit, and like these cannons were a little bit too fragile. No, I don't even think the cannons were too fragile. It was my mistake, but I'm artificially extending the scenario so that I can test out the mechanics. So these passed their save, their morale check, I should say. And then these infantry, they passed theirs as well. It's all turning around for the Empire. we are going to use heavy charge. So all of our knights are going to gain impact 1. So let's do it. These knights are going to charge these orcs. So when you charge, if you imagine again these kind of 45-degree splits, it's very common in these kind of block games. If you imagine like your front, your flanks, and your rear are each 45 degrees arcs out of your block, whichever direction you're charging in from, that's where you go, and you kind of snap to it. So even though we could say like, oh, we're going to charge the flank, to do that you have to be charging from that direction. You got to work for your flank charges, but we've already shown it can be done. So those knights are charging in. At the moment, there's no penalty for like shooting through your allies. It's kind of assumed that you coordinate it. I don't know how I feel about that, but it's a thing currently. These Empire, we're going to keep shooting at them. In fact, these cannons are even going to be able to do some shooting. So I think that's all the movement we're going to do. And now on to the shooting. So, Empire Infantry. Some more shots onto the Orcs. 5, that's nothing. Cannons. So the cannons have 2 modes of fire. They can fire at long range or artillery range, but either way, they're rolling a single die. 2 damage. And I should talk about damage mitigation a little bit here. So there's 3 ways. So in 1 hour war games, the inspiration, I guess, for this, infantry basically took half damage from any kind of... Well, sorry, that's not quite true. This 1 hour war games is actually like 8 different war games based on different eras. But if I'm looking at like the like classical era or the ancient era as like the starting point, the way they have it there is that infantry takes half damage from attacks to represent a combination of their great numbers, their shields, and a bit of armor. So even though like an individual like cavalry person might be tougher on paper, infantry as a block is more resilient. So the way that I've done is I've split that up. So there's 3 ways you can mitigate damage. So armor mitigates damage that you take in melee. So these Iron Orcs take 1 less damage whenever they're attacked in melee. Endure, which is what just regular Orcs have, that protects you against ranged attacks. So the logic is, even though these Iron Orcs are like armored up, they're kind of susceptible to ranged fire because they're clunky. There's probably fewer of them than there are of these like bog standard Orcs. So one thing to factor in here is that like quantity has a quality of its own. So the fact that this is a big block of Orcs means that they can probably take more arrow fire than their Iron Orc friends. But once these Iron Orcs get into melee, they're a bit more disciplined and more easily able to defend themselves. And we don't have any shield units, but shield units protect themselves from the front. Rogue Lettuce, thank you for your comment. I am reading it, but I'm trying to read it and talk at the same time, which is a disaster. But yeah, it sounds like you're on a similar kind of journey to myself at the minute. So we've shot with these 2. We've got this unit of infantry. So yeah, I mean, in terms of like shooting through allies, I'm happy with moving through allies because I think that kind of makes sense. Again, we're abstracting this. We're not taking this literally as like they're moving straight through. Like units can kind of maneuver around each other. But shooting, I don't know. It feels a little bit weird that we're shooting through, but we'll play it as it's written for now. So shooting at these boar riders 3. This is not looking good. And then we've got combat. So we'll do these knights first. So our knights here have 2 dice. And again, it's weird that like the knights have the same combat score as the infantry, but we're assuming this infantry block is a much bigger block than this unit of knights. So it is about thinking of the whole unit rather than like the individual. So they do have impact as a result of our command. Again, another way that the factions are different is that like Bretonnian knights I think a lot of them in the list will have impact like innately because that's what they do, they charge. But for the Empire Knights, they only gain impact when the commander like riles them up. So we're rolling 3 dice. 1, that's 3 damage. So this unit of Boar Riders is destroyed. So we have destroyed 1 unit of Orcs. If we can destroy 4 as the Empire, then we win. And the Orcs are halfway to their objective, so it's all happening. These Ogres, let's see if they can redeem themselves. So again, 6 attacks. Come on now, we'll pay you more. That'll do it. So these were there, and that is 7. So this unit of Boar Riders is also destroyed. So we've taken out all of the Orc cavalry. You know, getting flank charged by a unit of Ogres probably should wipe you out. And then I think that is all of the combat. So the Orcs now. What command are we using? Well, what are we going to do? So these are going to move forward. They're not going to be able to get really anywhere. We could use arrows. This unit of Orcs are in a bit of trouble here, but we can at least charge these knights and keep them locked up. I think we are going to use the arrows because it seems to be our only real shot at getting rid of these cannons. So we're going to use the arrows. So all of our units will have short 1, but we'll need to do some morale first. So the Iron Orcs, they're rolling 3 dice, and they need to get 6. Oh no! So I can have them retreat from the nearest enemy, which I guess is like it's the cannons, I guess. So retreat like back this way. Or I can have them hold, in which case they'll take potentially some damage, and it might even wipe them out. So I do like this already as like a little interesting decision you have to make. It's not just that your units run away. It's you have to decide, you know, the fact is some of your units, some of your Orcs are running away. Do you hold formation and retreat in an orderly fashion, or do you let them go and have the rest of the Orcs carry on fighting? But we're already massively damaged, so I think we have to stand and fight. So they're gonna break rather than retreat, which means they take some damage. Oh no! Unfortunately, that will kill them. So 3 units of Orcs are now dead. So you know, not long ago I was saying this was like a done deal with these with this Empire army was already like defeated, but now it's looking pretty bad for the Orcs. So we need to get someone over to these cannons. Right, you. Run into the woods. I don't know. These knights are going to chase us down, like, regardless. How far is it to there? We could, like, get through there, I guess. Yeah, let's, like, pivot and move up here. It's a bit of a sneaky move. But they're just running for these cannons because that's their objective now. And it does mean that these knights won't be able to charge them because they'll have to turn more than 90 degrees. So it is quite a sneaky move. And then these Orcs here. So enemies do block line of sight, so they can't just shoot at these cannons. We're just going to keep trucking forwards. Okay, so we got our arrows out. So these Orcs here, they can just reach this unit. And again, this is, in my heart of hearts, I feel like the measurement should be from like the center point to the nearest point of the enemy. So I'm going to say no, because like when I say center, I mean like the center of the front rank. I think some game calls it like the leader point. So I'm going to say no, they can't do that. But we do have these two that can both fire on these Empire infantry. So this Orc army is doing more shooting than fighting, which I kind of like. Like, I used to like, again, old man time, I used to like how like Orcs had the arrow boys, and they kind of felt like an army. They felt more like a proper army rather than like, I don't know, I never liked the whole like savage Orc thing. I like them more as like an industrialized kind of force. So these have each got short range. We'll roll them both. In fact, we're actually shooting into the flank, aren't we? So these both miss, but they should have both been double. So we'll just roll again. That's a 6 and that's a 4. So all the arrows miss. Some classic Orc shooting there. Back to the Empire. Now, it still could all go wrong because this cannon could like, the crew could abandon it at any moment. Which command are we using? Oof, these commands are rubbish. Yeah, they're not useful for us at the minute. There's a lot of writing to be done here. So, these cannons, come on, hold it together. No. So, they are going to break. And they're going to take 2 damage, which means this cannon unit is destroyed. So the Orcs have achieved their objective. But we will play the rest of this Empire turn because I want to see what happens now. But it was close. It was closer than we thought. I suppose these are just going to turn. Oh well, we need to roll a save for these. In fact, you know what? We're not going to just play on indefinitely because I think we can fit in another game. So that was like, I know it took. Well, it's been an hour since I started the stream, but I think a lot of that was just me talking about stuff. So I think we could play a game much quicker than that if I wasn't like explaining things. So in the chat, let's pick 2 sides. We have got High Elves, we've got Skaven, we've got Dwarves, we've got Empire, we've got Orcs, Goblins, Chaos Warriors. Give me a matchup and we'll do it. And I'll keep the terrain as it is. Like it's a relatively normalish looking battlefield. Tell you what, while you are in the chat deciding which of those factions you want to see, I'm going to run and get a drink. So this will be an intermission. Welcome back. Rogue Lettuce and Jay Waffles have determined between them that it's going to be Skaven versus Goblins, which I fully approve of. So we're going to just like hodgepodge up a scenario. So let's have a look. We've got some clan rats. So the way that 1 hour Wargames works is you have 6 units and it's kind of rolled randomly, but you always have like 2 or 3 of like your core unit. I quite like that as an idea. So we're going to have 2 units of clan rats. We're going to have some monstrosities, which is like a catch-all term for giant rats and rat ogres. In a dream world, I'd have like a beastmaster on here. So part of the reason that I'm drawn to this kind of 10mm scale on these big 10cm wide bases is that you can make almost like a mini like scene for each unit. So you can have like a mix on there. I don't want to have many units that are just like a block of units, a block of individuals standing like side by side. I do want to have these little scenes almost. Mini dioramas, I guess, almost. So we've got monstrosities, clan rats. We'll have some doom wheels, obviously. I think the doom wheel is like the thing that made me choose Skaven. We'll have 1 unit of gunners, so like your Jezzails, and I'm just aware I've never had to say Jezzail out loud, and I have no idea how to pronounce it. And you know what? Let's have a 2nd unit of monstrosities. I like keeping things simple in the sense of having like a few different types of unit. Like, don't try and have every single unit from a faction in a battle because again, things are quick. So, our clan rats, they have endure, which means they are good at just soaking up missile attacks. Our monstrosities, they're dead simple. All they do is run and sprint and hit. Our gunners are also very simple. Oh, shoot 3. That's an old version of long 3. So they have very powerful shooting, but bad at everything else. And the doom wheels, they zip around firing lightning and ramming people. But the problem with the Skaven is, so these units are both going to run away the second anything bad happens. So we'll put our Skaven over here. And I will copy down the Skaven commands from the document that I have open, because they will not be using war. So again, this is where I want to get a lot of the faction character in there. So Skaven. So what are their things? They have scurry, which means retreating units move an extra measure. So a measure is 10 centimeters. Vermintide. Supported units gain sprint and warp fire. So one engaged unit inflicts 1 combat die of damage. No, 2 combat die. Sorry, ignore me. So, obviously, the idea here is on each turn, the Skaven are going to choose one of these. So they're either very good at running away and not getting caught, which is an advantage, you know. Supported units are units that are like backed up by another unit. So when you back up some clan rats, like the first one will move quicker. And the warp fire is kind of there to represent these like weapons teams that they would typically have attached. So like a warp fire thrower or a poison wind globes. But you've got to actually have a unit engaged to be able to use that. So this would be our Skaven army, and then our goblins. Well, let's think about this scenario here, because I said there's no pitch battles, are there? I do like a kind of... Do you like an ambush? So let's have our clan rats. Oh, we need to pick somewhere for our leader to be. Ugh, I guess he'll be in one of these clan rat units. But if I'm going to do that, I'm definitely going to bump these together as one. So this is our clan rats plus our warlord, which means they'll get brave 1, which helps them not run away. Let's say these units are on the board, and our objective See, I'm already like, oh, this is too hard. But this is the point. This is why the game is simple, so that we can have like interesting scenarios. So our objective is to... We could just make it like a survival thing. So yeah, keep the warlord alive until... I would just keep the warlord alive. So it is risky doing this because like there's so many like ways to just run and shoot a certain unit. Yeah, I'm already like, I don't like it. We'll come back to the objective. I don't want to spend all day thinking about this. But I like the idea of like a kind of staggered deployment thing. Like, you know, like a like a surprise encounter almost. So these clan rats are coming up here, but there's going to be some goblins over here that are kind of like not expecting them. So goblins. Yeah, we'll do like a surprise encounter between these two big like blocks of infantry. Goblin boss. So these have shield. So these are better at protecting themselves from the front. But if you get them in the flank or the rear, they are no good at all. So we'll have those, and then we'll pick some who's coming to their aid. We'll make these like quite a fast army. So a couple of chariots, a couple of wolf riders. And we'll say at the end of each goblin phase, goblin turn, we can deploy 1 combat die, so that would be 2. That many of our reinforcements along our border. And then same for the Skaven. So it is like a kind of staggered encounter sort of thing. Having the gunners come on late is kind of terrible, but I'll take it. We have a lot of clan rats here. I've accidentally duplicated the clan rats. Okay, cool. And let's get our goblin commands. So they have fanatics, which means 1 unit gains blast 2. So ideally, a lot of the goblin units have shooting at short range to represent their short bows, but you can choose one of them to like throw out the fanatics, which means they will cause a big like big spike of damage. So we've got fanatics, fungus, units that would retreat, move forward instead. So it's a bit niche, but kind of means that like if a unit fails their morale check, rather than retreat, they can just kind of go into a bit of a frenzy and charge. And they actually have scurry, which is the same as the Skaven one for now, but this will change. Retreating units move an extra measure. You know, I don't like that. We're going to make it a bit different. So I like the idea of like protecting the goblins that are running away. So I think the ability is going to be like no, you know, we'll leave it as is. I'm not going to do game design on the on the fly. So it's not a pitched battle. Our scenario is this, and we'll say that this is going to be like a wipe out the enemy sort of scenario, let's say, which I know I said ideally you wouldn't have, but I think the sort of stag nature of this means that it will still be interesting. So let's test it out. Goblins. 5. That means we're going to have initiative. So we're deploying pretty close here. Like we're already kind of not quite within range, but if we move forward, I don't know, let's get up this hill. Yeah, let's be sneaky goblins here. So being on a hill kind of protects your does offer you some protection. In fact, yeah, let's split up. So we're going to pivot this way. and move forward 10. Okay, yeah, so we're going to split up because we know that this big unit of clan rats is going to want to stay together. So we'll split our forces. I'm an absolute strategic genius, aren't I? And at the end of our turn, we will roll 3. So 3 of our units will deploy from this edge. So Wolf Riders and Chariots are pretty similar, but Wolf Chariots are better at charging, and Wolf Riders are better in a sort of more prolonged combat. So let's put down one of each. And perhaps another one over here. So this is not looking good for the Skaven, especially if we're not going to get some any reinforcements for a while. So what command are we going to use? Our objective is just wipe them out. So I'm breaking my own rules within like one play of this game. We could do that, but we don't really want to. We're not really in a position to charge anyway. So I think we're going to go for like this. Wherever we go, we're going to get shot in the flank, which is not great. So let's just move forward 10. And then pivot that way. And then these are going to do the same sort of thing. Now, let's hope we can roll a 1, 2, or 3. A 1, so we at least get something out on the board. I feel like getting these gunners out early on is going to help us a great deal later on. Help if they were facing the right way. So yeah, we'll put them here, so we can get on this hill and do some shooting. Right, back to the goblins. Can they hold the initiative? No. Another Skaven turn. So, gunners, get up here. So we're still using this Vermintide thing, but I don't think it's going to be... Oh, I don't know. I think... Yeah. So Vermintide means that supported units gain sprint. So these can charge 20 centimeters, which will take them up into the flank. But we are flank charging on a hill, so we'll see what that means. And then our Warlord unit, they're not supported, so they're going to be a little bit behind. I kind of feel like the Vermintide thing should help both of them. So it's like supported and supporting units. No, okay. It's a little bit janky at the minute, but it's going to take them a little bit of time to get engaged. So we have contact at least. So our clan rats here are charging the goblins. So they roll 2 dice. The goblins are going to get benefit from being on this hill. And the benefit they get is they get to ignore 1 damage, basically. But we are getting double dice from our flank charge. And that is 2 damage. These goblins do have shield, but we're charging the flank, so it doesn't help them at all. So they are going to take 2 damage. So you do get some slightly complex interactions here, which I wouldn't like in like Grimlight, because that was intended to be like ultra simple, but I don't mind it in this game. Let's clear up, and then it's going to be the goblins' turn. Yeah, because we can't do any shooting really. Oh, hang on. We get to roll for reinforcements again, don't we? 1, so we get another unit on the board. I think, again, getting these monstrosities out here early on, even though the Doom Wheel's fast, I don't know, we're doing the Doom Wheel because it's fun. So I can't resist the Doom Wheel's charms. And it's fast, so we're going to be able to like zip it right up here and get right stuck into the fun. So goblins. We do have a morale issue here. They're a 2 combat die unit. So you got some weird situations where like goblins their morale is like the same as Empire troops or elves. There are some units that have this brave trait, but again, the goblin infantry block is like meant to be a lot of goblins, so that's where their bravery is coming from. Whereas things like their wolf riders, the chariots especially, are like very prone to morale failure. So they pass. We will definitely use one of these abilities. We will use Fanatics on the Goblin Boss unit. So we can move these goblins so they're at least facing the front. So that means now they'll be benefiting from their shield and from the hill. So they'll be ignoring 2 damage every attack, which is pretty good. This goblin boss is going to rotate and move forward 10 to here. Yeah, because we want to release our fanatics at this unit over here. We're going to send our wolf riders just charging up the flank. Same with our chariot. Okay, they're gonna have to stop there. You can squeeze through terrain, but you can't like stop on the gap. So you can. In fact, we're gonna take these up the hill because I'm concerned about these goblins. We might want to support them. There we go. Okay, so that's all our moves. Now we're going to do some shooting. So these goblins are rolling 1, but they've got blast 2 because of their fanatics, and that is not what the Skaven want to see. So that'll be 5 damage. They do have endure, so it's dropped down to 4, but that is a good roll for the fanatics. These goblins are going to attack the clan rats. They're just rolling 2 damage. That's 1. And these wolf riders, they do have short bows, so they can fire. They're just rolling 1. Oh, it's another damage at least. Although the clan rats have endure, so they ignore it. And these cannot shoot anyone, no way. And then we'll roll to see about our reinforcements. No. So back to the Skaven, but it's an initiative roll. Skaven hold the initiative. So we're definitely getting these up onto the hill. It's going to take us a while to get into like a shooting position, but once we're there, because remember long range is 30 centimeters, so they can fire like, oh, not quite actually. But we might want to do like a little feigned retreat and bring them back into our firing lines. The Doom Wheels are gonna surge forward. This is the Goblin Boss unit, so I think we do probably want to charge it, but we can't quite manage it. Oh, what was our ability? We'll use Warp Fire, actually, but we need to do some morale rolls first. I've already forgotten how the game works. So this unit here, they're Brave 1, which means they're rolling an extra die for their morale, and they need a 4 or more. They're fine. These clan rats, they need a 4 or more, a 1 or more, sorry. So as I was saying that out loud, I realised a 1 or more is impossible, or rather impossible to fail. So yeah, all our morale is fine. So our command is Warp Fire. So we will inflict 2 damage on this unit of goblins here. So the warp fire throwers are going to get them. 2. Now, because this is just inflicted damage, their shields won't protect them because it's not really an attack. So these goblins are getting to be in a bad place. I think we want to... so we know that's a 1. I think we want to snap up here and support our clan rats. Now we're putting our general in a bit of a funny place because he's probably going to get charged by this goblin unit, but that's what we have to do, I think. Okay, and then combat. So these clan rats, they're all 2 dice. They are supported, so they're going to roll 3. And we need to roll big here. It's telling me that's a 6. So I'm going to trust tabletop sim. So that's nothing. This goblin unit, they've got the shields, they're on a hill. This isn't a good way of fighting them, really. We're kind of throwing ourselves up against the wall. We should be trying to get in the flank or shooting at them from the flank or the rear, which is hopefully where our doom wheel is going to come in. Okay, so that's the Skaven. Reinforcements. 1. So we'll have a unit of monstrosities. Come on. Now, goblins. Fanatics again, I think is probably our best bet, like with this unit. So we're going to release our Fanatics into the Warlord unit, which is going to be kind of brutal. So we're going to move forward. We don't want to get too close though. I think we're going to stay where we are because we don't want to walk into the line of these gunners. Yeah, so they're going to stay where they are. These Wolf Riders, should we try and flank them? I don't think we need to reinforce them really. So we're going to rotate and move 20 into like this little area here. It would be nice if we could charge the Doom Wheel because a lot of the Doom Wheel's impact comes from its impact ability. It only really matters on the charge. The Wolf Chariots, we're going to send them down the side as well. So they pivoted and then moved that sort of fashion. Okay. What did I not do? Again, I didn't do morale. I need like a cheat sheet to have on hand. We only have 1 unit that has any damage, which is this block here. But it is a bit scary. Need a 4+, so they make it. I need to remember, morale, movement, shooting, melee. So, shooting. These can't do anything yet. We probably should have thought about being able to shoot into these flanks, but we missed that. This goblin boss is going to fire another load of fanatics into the clan rats. I kind of feel like if a unit is supporting another unit, it should also be like guarded by that unit for shooting, but we'll think about that later on. Another 3. What are the odds? Well, I know the odds, but that's a lot of damage. So that is 3 damage plus 2 for the fanatics. -1 for endure. It's enough to kill the clan rats. So the Skaven general is dead, most alarmingly, the Warlord. So they can't use their command abilities anymore. Which is kind of bad because I was enjoying those water fire throwers a lot. Okay. Oh, I didn't move these, did I? So rough terrain is really bad for cavalry, but we're gonna do it anyway. So goblins, any reinforcements? 3. Only 1 left, so we're definitely gonna put them here. Send them up the center. Back to the Skaven. Initiative. They keep it. So we don't have these commands anymore. We can like forget about that. These are dead, so let's put them aside. These monstrosities are still yet to come on. So do we have any morale? Just this one, and they've got one casualty, so they're fine. Let's get the Doom Wheels involved. So they're going to roll over here. Oh, they're so close to being in range. We're going to stop about there, actually. We're not going to go all the way forwards. Oh, I don't know. Yeah, that's fine. And these monstrosities are going to surge forwards at a comparatively slow rate, but they can sprint once they get a bit closer. So, shooting. These can't shoot because long range, you can only pivot and shoot. You can't move and shoot. Doom Wheels. They are short 2. They roll 2, and they're going to target the Goblin boss with the Warp Lightning. 4 damage. The shield will take 1 of that damage, but it will still knock them down to, or rather, it will cause 3 damage total. These clan rats here, they're unsupported now, so they're in a bit of a bad place. 2 damage, but they've got their shield and the hill, so they are protected against that. This is kind of a bad place, I feel like. Let me remind myself how movement works. So if you are engaged with an enemy, you can only move directly away from them, or you can turn to face them if they're on your flank. And you cannot move if you're pinned by 2 enemies at once. So I kind of wonder about like having these retreat maybe on a future turn, because they're not doing anything against these goblins. And we kind of want to draw the goblins towards our more powerful units at the back. Okay, cool. That's a Skaven turn anyway. So, reinforcements. Cool. So we get our monstrosities here. Let's go here, just in case. So all the units are now on the battlefield. Sorry, they should have been on the actual field. Okay, morale. So we've got a bit of a problem building up here with our goblins. So this is our boss. So he's rolling an extra die, and he needs a 3 or more. Wait. Well, he passes, but before we do this, we're going to use the Fanatics again. I think Fanatics is too good, or the other abilities are too weak. That's the problem. So he passes. This unit need a 4 or more. They pass. Just. And that's all of the morale. So we're going to fire the Fanatics at the Doom Wheels, I think. Like, because these Doom Wheels are a bit scary. So Goblin Boss, pivot. Move forward 10. And then he's going to be able to shoot at the Doom Wheels. Or he could even shoot at the Jezzails. But I want these Doom Wheels gone, basically. The Wolf Riders, we kind of want to just move directly forwards if we can. So we're going to have to pivot and move to there. I think we just want to do we're not going to move our full distance, we're just hedging our bets here because we want to deal with these monstrosities. We could do with flanking them, really. And then the Wolf Riders, we might regret this decision because we're going to pivot, but then when we're moving through rough terrain, we don't benefit from our fast ability, so we would just move the normal 10 centimeters. And on top of that, the rough terrain halves it. So in rough terrain, we're like exactly the same as an infantry unit. So the lesson is, do not send your cavalry through here unless they are skirmishers, which these are not. Okay, Shooting. Goblin boss. He's firing a fanatic at these. So he's got blast 2. So it's going to cause 3 damage. And the thing with these Doom Wheels is they're not good at morale. They're only rolling a single die. So they're liable to run away or just start like malfunctioning is how I like to imagine it. Do we have any other shooting to do? These Wolf Riders are just out of range. No. Melee. These Goblins. 2 attacks. 5. Yes, please. So again, the swinginess is there. Like these goblins were like on the verge of running away, and now they've just crushed these clan rats. Those clan rats are almost certainly gonna run away or at least die next turn. Oh, I didn't actually move this chariot forward, so we'll do that now. I guess we could shoot with them. Yeah, we could shoot with them. So they're only rolling 1 attack, but they're shooting on these clan rats. No. And then that's all of the melee. That's all of the combat for the goblins. So we're going back to the Skaven. But will they keep the initiative? Yes. So we've got lots of morale issues going on here with these Skaven. So let's do them one at a time. So this is our clan rats. They need to roll a 6. Wow. They do. These need to roll a 3 or more. They do not. So they can either flee away from the nearest enemy, which is these Doom Wheels, or they can break, at which point they will take a bit of damage. I think they're going to hold firm for now. So they're going to break, which means they are going to take no damage. But breaking is much more bearable when you're like out of combat. But when you're engaged, if you break, it's really bad because you add an extra die for each enemy touching you. I'm aware that I've just rolled. Oh, I'm losing track of which side I'm on. This is the problem with these scenarios where there's like lots of different lots of different facings going on. It's the Skaven turn. I am the Skaven. What am I talking about? These goblins. Apply everything I just said to these Doom Wheels because it still applies. I know I should have only rolled 1, but we failed it anyway. So yeah. So the Doom Wheel broke, but they didn't lose any, didn't take any damage, and that's all of the damaged units that the Skaven have at the minute. Movement. Monstrosities are going to come forward 10 here, and they're going to like turn to face this charge potentially. These are just going to run forwards. It's a very rough measure in here. Now, these gunners, what's the plan? So the question I'm thinking is, do I charge in with these Doom Wheels, or do I think, you know, you have to do all the movement first, so they're gonna have to charge in, and then these gunners can shoot further back, so it's fine. So the Doom Wheels are going to charge. You know, it's what Doom Wheels are there for, so we're doing it. Shooting. We only have these gunners that are in a position to shoot, but they are finally there. So they can shoot at... They could shoot at these goblins because they've got the hill, you know? They can shoot through their allies. So I think that's fine. So the Skaven gunners roll 3 shots because they are pretty brutal. 1 damage, and their shield will absorb that. So good shooting, rats. That's not good. Combat. These clan rats. We need a result out of these clan rats now. 3. So the shield blocks one, the hill blocks another, but that is enough to cause a point of damage, which could just tip the balance. And finally, the doom wheels. So they do 1 die normally. So you don't want to get them tied up in combat. But when they do impact, which is when they charge, they do 2 extra dice. 3 damage. They do have shield, so it's reduced to 2. But that will hurt them. I think that's all of the shooting, all the combat done. Now to the goblins, and this morale phase is going to be like, this is going to be what really makes or breaks it for the goblins. So 5+ needed. Wow, they're not messing around. 5+ needed from these goblins, and it's the boss, so he gets an extra 1. 5+. These goblins, I'm telling you, disciplined. So let's do some moving. So these are going to move like another 5 centimeters, but at least they're almost through it. These wolf riders, they can pivot and charge. In fact, no, we're not going to do that. We're just going to pivot and move in this sort of direction. I know we're leaving ourselves open to like being flanked by these monstrosities, but I think we need to do something over here. And these chariots are going to move here and like hold back. So my theory is these monstrosities, they can't flank both of us, and whichever one they attack will just attack with the other one. And these chariots here, we're just going to move them forwards to support here. They're going to support these goblins. And, you know, support is very abstract. So it could be that they're firing their bows over. It could be that it's like, kind of like a boost in morale, I guess, having these guys behind you. They're not literally riding in and charging. Okay, cool. Oh, and what ability are we using? Fanatics, I would imagine. Yeah. Fanatics. We don't have any units that... Yeah, well, we do. We have some of these. So we'll use... Yeah, we'll use these wolf riders to throw some fanatics out. Now, I don't know whether you can deploy fanatics in a unit of wolf riders, but I like the idea a lot, so we're doing it. Okay, shooting. Wolf chariots are going to shoot just 1 die. That'll do. 2. These wolf riders shooting at the flank of these gunners, so they're going to roll 2 actually. Just the 1. And then it's melee. So we've got these goblins, which are now supported, so they're going to roll 3 attacks. That is 5 damage. That will destroy these doom wheels. I feel like this wasn't effective use of my doom wheel. Really, you want to be like zipping around, zapping the enemy, and then charging into the rear or something, so you can like do a decisive charge, whereas I just did a kind of a weak charge to the front of a unit with shields. So yeah, that that happened. Oh, I forgot that this unit was firing. They had the fanatics, didn't they? So they're going to actually cause 3 damage there. Okay, that's goblins done. Skaven. Initiative. So the initiative gets handed over to the goblins. And it's a mixed blessing, because now they've got to roll like all these morale saves again. So this unit of goblins... 3. Oh, no, sorry, 2 dice, they pass. This unit here, they get to roll 3 dice. They need a 5. Been rolling really well on morale saves, I feel. I feel like inordinately well. So what's the status? That we've only destroyed 2 Skaven units, but they are in a bit of a... We've damaged them, we've softened them up a lot. Let's do some charges. So this unit, I think we're still in the rough terrain, but if we pivot that way, then I guess that's going to be like 5 centimeters to get out. I don't know. I haven't fully worked out how this this rule needs a lot of clarification, so I'm just going to do a kind of weird half move with these guys, so we can at least shoot at these monstrosities. These goblins, they can't quite charge, but we can get... In fact, yeah, we can move to like here, and then we can charge with this chariot. So the fact that we've engaged these gunners means it's probably kind of game over time for the Skaven, because we're also going to hit them with a flank attack there. And I feel like we might as well just slam everything in. We'll use Fanatics on these Wolf Riders, because they're the only ones that are going to be shooting. So that's 1 die with Blast 2. That's 4 damage to these monstrosities. And then we are into melee. So let's see if we can finish this one. So these goblins up here. 2 attacks. They're dead. So did I have the objective of something like wipe out their core units? Because if they did, then the goblins have just won. But we will plough on anyway, just to see how this turn pans out. This unit of chariots here are going to be rolling 3. That's 2 damage. We have another chariot unit attacking for 3, causing 5. Well, they're gone. The Wolf Riders have no one left to attack, and yeah, that's it. All that's left are monstrosities on the Skaven side. Let's give them a turn and see what they can do at least. They're rolling 3, so it's a bit of a weird situation where if you give a unit a high, like, this is an example of a unit that should probably have like a lower number of dice so that they're not so good at morale saves, but give them an extra ability somehow. But it's a bit of a clunky system, like adding in more keywords. But either way, they're rolling 3 for morale saves. That's a 5, so they pass, and this unit needs a 4 or more. They pass. So we can at least get some charges in. So we're going to charge these Wolf Riders that have just spent the last few turns slugging through the long grass. And let's do some fighting at least. 5 casualties, 5 damage rather. They were previously called casualties, but I like making it a bit more abstract. 3. So that's the end of the Skaven turn. Now, looking at the situation, we've destroyed both the Clanrat units, so the goblins have won. These units are probably going to break at some point. These are almost certainly going to break. Let's just do the morale phase, just because I'm interested to see how it works out. So this unit of goblins here need a 5 or more. They're fine. I shouldn't underestimate these goblins. These need a 5 or more. They make it. These need a 3 or more. They make it. These need a 5 or more. Of course. So I'm talking absolute nonsense. So I think some of my takeaways from here are, I like how quick and deadly it is. And I like how swingy it is. That is very much kind of by design. But I'm also kind of like in 2 minds about it. So I need to play it a bit more. I'd be interested in playing it with an actual other person to see how it feels to be on like both sides of that. but I like the core feel of it at the moment. I like the way that movement and combat works, and the speed of it, and the decisiveness. The command abilities are like way imbalanced at the moment. Like Fanatics is too good compared to all the other abilities, so there's going to be some work going on there. One option I did originally have was that each of these you can use them like once per battle, which makes a bit more sense, because then you've got to find a way to use them all. You can't just think, well, my army is built to use the Fanatics over and over and over again. It's no, you've got one batch of Fanatics and you need to make it count, and it can create these kind of dramatic moments. So I think just shifting to a one use only thing would be the next obvious thing to try. I think also that the way that the scenarios are set, the way that the scenario guidance is going to be key. So there are actually 30 different scenarios in the back of this book that are kind of designed for any era and are very kind of straightforward. That's the thing, I want straightforward scenarios. I don't want it to add more complexity. I just want it to make an interesting setup. But anyway, I was glad to be able to share some of the playtesting process with you. Thank you for watching. If you want to support this these streams, as always, you can go to patreon.com/bastionland. And if you want to find out more, you can go to bastionland.com. There's nothing up about this game yet. This is literally like the first look at it. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it, and until next time, bye for now.